question about it. The last several months, almost a year now, has been challenging and challenging in places like home in South Carolina. But realtors have stepped up to the plate. You all have done a fantastic job. I know in my home county of Charleston, where I was born and raised, the record-breaking listings, the number of folks willing to sell their houses was week after week, a new record was set. You all have taken the responsibility of making home ownership a reality in the midst of a pandemic in a powerful, positive, and motivating way. Thank you for your hard work. Let's talk about a few of the issues. Frankly, the pandemic has brought many of us to our knees, hopefully in prayer, but certainly it has been a crisis. One of the things that I've seen as a response to the COVID-19 challenge is the moratorium on evictions. It sounds like a wonderful idea. However, what we've learned through the pandemic and what we know is common sense really is at some point an eviction moratorium is not in the best interest of those renting, certainly not in the interest of the landlord. It can be a lose-lose proposition. You know why. I'm just going to articulate it in my own little way. When you know your rent is, let's say, $1,000 a month and you can not pay it for a while because you can't be kicked out, what happens is all that accrues. What does that mean? Sooner or later, you gotta pay the piper. So the last thing we should do is make it easier for folks not to pay what they can, when they should, because at the end, you still owe them money. So extending that moratorium that sounds like compassion might actually be the worst thing that happens to people who will then have no place to live. We're going to continue to work on bringing more common sense, targeted, temporary solutions to address the challenges that so many Americans face. The good news is a family of 4 with one person unemployed has received, in addition to state assistance, in addition to normal federal assistance, nearly $21,000 of additional assistance because of the pandemic. That means that we are moving in the right direction. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the way you serve. And yes, we'll continue to tackle some of the really important issues from flood insurance to terrorism insurance, and some of the things that we've worked on together, simplifying the mounds and mounds of paperwork that it takes to get there. And hopefully we'll stay in a low interest environment, low interest rate environment, so that you guys continue to do what only you do. Thank you for doing it, though. God bless.
Thank you for the invitation to address you today. As realtors, you're on the front lines of the issues facing America's households. You gain insight into conditions on the ground every day. Anything that harms homeowners or those who aspire to home ownership harms you. And anything that helps them helps you. Housing is essential, and therefore, so are realtors. I applaud your industry and how well you have adapted to the pandemic. Your use of technology and other innovations have enabled Americans to buy and sell homes safely. When I addressed you last year, I said that the single most important thing we can do for our economy is to put the public health measures in place that will enable us to resume all economic activity. Unfortunately, that is still true today. Right now, the most important of these measures is vaccine distribution. The House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis, which I chair, is committed to ensuring that this is done effectively, efficiently, and equitably. The Biden administration has taken the lead to increase manufacturing and delivery. Congress must provide the necessary resources laid out in the American Rescue Plan. Regarding both the public health response and economic relief, the legislation enacted in December was an important step, but it was only one step. For many Americans, passage of the American Rescue Plan will be the difference between buying a house and continuing to rent, or the difference between holding on to their homes and foreclosure. In addition to extending the eviction and foreclosure moratoria, the American Rescue Plan will provide an additional $25 billion for rental assistance, which is vitally important, not just for the renters, but for landlords as well. It also continues applications for forbearance on federally guaranteed mortgages. But the relief in this proposal that impacts your industry so significantly goes far beyond the provisions specific to housing. Funding for state and local governments means protecting the livelihoods of teachers, first responders, and other essential workers. This will directly affect whether they can buy homes and maintain them. Direct payments are needed for Americans to sustain themselves and their communities. We must provide an additional $1,400 on top of the $600 already enacted. Enhanced unemployment benefits are needed so that losing your job doesn't mean losing your home. If Congress doesn't act, this lifeline will end before the pandemic does. In addition to making sure people have the resources to buy homes and keep them, we must also make sure those homes are connected to essential services like broadband internet. During this time of social distancing, it is even more of a necessity for telehealth, telework, and remote learning. No matter how beautiful a house is, I am sure you will struggle to sell it if it isn't connected to broadband. Last Congress, the House passed the Accessible Affordable Internet for All Act as part of the Moving Forward Act. This legislation, which is the product of my Rural Broadband Task Force, will make the necessary investments to bring affordable, high-speed internet to all Americans. The Rural Broadband Task Force is having our first meeting of the new Congress this week, and we will be reintroducing the Accessible Affordable Internet Act for All in the coming days. I am hopeful that this Congress will finally make broadband internet accessible and affordable for all Americans by passing this bill. In closing, I want to thank you. We are working hard on these and other issues to help all our fellow Americans through this difficult time. I thank you for working with us. And once again, I thank you for having me with you today.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you inviting me to your conference. There are a few things I'd like to talk to you about. One is I'm delighted to know that we're completing a record year of 101,500 closings. As y'all might know, I and a lot of people I know are very interested in real estate and who's selling and who's buying. And around the university where Peggy and I live, except while we're here in the mansion, we see property going up for sale all the time, and it's really interesting to watch that activity. We know that South Carolina had the second highest percentage of inbound migration in the country last year, second only to Idaho, and that just proves what we have known all along is that people are getting here just as quick as they can. A number of things that we're trying to do here at the State House. We finally in 2020 accomplished business license tax reform, which was a major win for the real estate industry. across counties and municipalities. We standardize that licensing process and making it easier for business owners to pay their taxes. Also, we rolled back we reduced the application of rollback taxes on former agricultural property from 5 years to 3 years. That made sense, and we were glad to be able to do that. A number of things that are our priorities with COVID which is really testing us, is challenging us, but we in South Carolina have used common sense, followed the facts and the science, and we're coming out of it much better than most of the country, because they were looking for trying to close down as much as they could. They went into this essential and non-essential business thing. We didn't do it quite that way. We looked at the close contact types of activities and circumstances and limited those where we had to, and for a shorter period as we had to, and then we opened it back up. So South Carolina really never closed, and that's one reason that we're doing well and going to do even better. And that gives us really a head start on a lot of our competitors. But I've proposed that we be very careful with our money. One thing we did with the COVID money that came in, $1.9 billion, we put over $900 million of that back into our unemployment insurance trust fund so that we would not have to raise taxes on businesses in order to replenish that fund. So right now we've got as much money in that unemployment insurance trust fund as we had before COVID even arrived, just before it got here. So we're in good shape there. I've proposed that we put $500 million of our budgetary surplus, which is 38 cents out of every new dollar, into our state's rainy day reserve fund. We never know when we're going to need it, and the time to put it in there is when the money's coming in. In addition, something that we've done last year, we directed over $40 million in that Federal CARES Act money to provide relief, financial relief, to 2,284 small businesses. And also, each year I sign a qualified allocation plan to distribute federal grants throughout the state through the South Carolina Housing Finance and Development Authority, which is aimed at incentivizing affordable housing in the areas that need it. And we work closely with the Realtors Association to make sure we use those resources wisely. And of course, everyone knows of the enterprise zones, which are attracting more and more attention here in South Carolina. I'd like to finish up on just a couple of things. One is about the vaccine. We are doing well. We started off kind of slow. We had some bottlenecks with the big hospitals that we were depending on, because they were the ones that were able and knew how to bring people in and get them vaccinated. But they were moving a little slow, but we got the protocols worked out, got the system, kinks out of the system, and most of them are working very well now. And in addition, in the last 2 weeks, we've had a number of pharmacies, local health centers, and some doctors' offices come online with vaccine. So we now have over 300, way over 300 locations out there where people can get vaccinations if they fall within the proper categories. And we have sites that are standing up, mass vaccination sites. All you have to do is you can call DHEC, or easier if you can go online, look at the DHEC map, and you see where all those locations are. But we want to get them out to the people as soon and quickly as we can. We understand that in March we'll be expecting a lot more vaccine. That's one of the problems we have now, is we don't have enough for everybody who wants it. But what we've done is concentrated on the people that are most likely to die if they do not have the vaccine, and that's the elderly, and also for those that keep them and us alive. And that's people that work in the hospitals, all your kind of hospital workers and doctors, as well as a lot of the first responders, because we see a duty to keep those that are in danger of dying from the vaccine, and that's the people. The average age of those who have died is 75 years old, and about 88% of the people who have died are over 61 years old. So that's our focus now. And we will take care of them, and as soon as we have enough vaccine And it may be before we even through with that group, we'll spread it out to the rest of the population. Final thought is we're doing well in South Carolina economically. In reviewing the fiscal health of state governments during the pandemic, one national news source said, and I quote, "South Carolina's exceptionally strong economy over the last 2 fiscal years has allowed the state to weather the pandemic with little budget disruptions to date." And that's the way we want to keep it, by being careful, being smart with your money, with tax money. And when we do that, and when we have the right policies and we streamline government and get rid of the red tape, that means that you can make more money, more people can buy houses, more people can sell houses and move to other places. And that's what we intend to do, because when the housing industry is going well, everything's going well. So you have a nice conference, and if you ever need me, just call. Thank you.